Dear Cyntoia, I know you're anxious and you feel alone right now, but I want you to know that God hears you. You don't have a driver's license, you haven't voted, or even made it to prom.
Do you understand why you're here?
Yes, ma'am.
But today, you're in juvenile court, praying that you will not be tried as an adult. And although you will be told that you're going to die in prison, I'm here to tell you that's a lie. A wild swing of events is about to take place that will cause you to question whether God even exists. But just keep your faith and trust me when I say He hears you.
That was Cyntoia Brown-Long's message to her 16-year-old self. Cyntoia was a human trafficking victim when she was a child, and she killed a 43-year-old man who picked her up for sex when she was just 16. She received a life sentence, but was released after serving 15 years and was then granted clemency by the governor. But Cyntoia didn't waste her time while serving hard time. She earned a college degree from a Christian university and then counseled other inmates. She tells her story in a memoir called Free Cyntoia, My Search for Redemption in the American Prison System. Rich recently spoke with Cyntoia about her life, the book, as well as the next chapter in her life.
You know, I was thinking for this conversation, my God, after spending about half your life incarcerated and finally to get freedom and to have 2020, what a year, you know, to finally be outside with just all the insanity that we've seen in the, you know, I guess first 7, 8 months this year.
It's been pretty crazy, but, you know, I've been through worse, so.
Absolutely. And to that end, we've spent a lot of time in this program about education behind bars. And I have all the data to show that for people who do get an education, the rate of recidivism, it's next to zero compared to 50% or more, depending on where you are in the country. Talk about that turning point when you were incarcerated, when you talked to that person and that mentor, and how it literally turned your life around.
Yes, so education for those who are incarcerated is something that I'm very passionate about as well. For me, that was really a pivotal point in my rehabilitation and turning things around. It plays a big role in my everyday life today. And I definitely understand why it's a big factor in reducing recidivism. For me, it gave me tools. It helped me to really lay out a blueprint of what I wanted my life to look like. I knew what had happened in the past and what I didn't want, but I really needed that direction and that guidance to see what is it that I want to do with my life? How can I go about it? And I think that's the big difference. Once I got that through education, it just opened up so many opportunities, and it also taught me how to create opportunities where there were none.
Cyntoia, I'm always curious when people have gone through such trauma like you did as a child and spending half your life behind bars, that when they get freedom, that they don't want to just compartmentalize and put it behind them. You put it all down, and all the strikes you had against you as a child, the challenges that even your mother dealt with in terms of what she grew up with, but you chose to not only put it down on paper, but also speak across the country on it. I always wonder, does that run the risk of reopening so many of the wounds and keeping them so present every day, or do you just feel like you had no choice?
It doesn't run that risk because I made sure that I was okay and that I was in a place where I felt confident in my healing before I went out to speak to other people. I think it's really important to make sure that you're okay first, to take care of yourself first, before you start really trying to help others get out of their trauma. But for me, I don't feel that there is a choice. I learned how to create purpose from that pain, and God gave me this testimony for a reason. He didn't give it to me to not speak about it, to not share about it. You never know who's listening to your story. You never know who's reading what you have to say and how that may help them get through a rough patch in life. I am living proof that you can come out of anything and you can thrive. And if there's anything that I can say or do to help another person make it out of that rough patch in their life, then I'm absolutely going to do it.
Obviously, our audience knows what child trafficking is, but it's one of those subjects I think that people don't want to dig too deep because they're afraid of what they'll find is how prevalent or horrific it is. Tell our audience just how widespread of a crisis this is and where so much help is needed.
So, one of the things you said was you think that, your audience knows what child sex trafficking is. But what I have found is that many people who think they really know what it is, they don't. They don't fully understand just how common it is and just how it takes place. For me, when I was growing up, I wasn't seen as a child sex trafficking victim. I was seen as a promiscuous young girl. I was seen as someone who was just fast. And a lot of times, the girls who are going through trafficking, they don't have pimps that they know about. They have boyfriends. They have older boyfriends. We know now that those are trafficking, but when you're caught up in that situation, you don't really know that. So it could be a young girl that you see at a grocery store with an older man. That's a child sex trafficking victim. You may think at first glance that she's just being promiscuous or fast, but that's not what it is. And that's another thing that my husband and I do with our nonprofit is really educating the public on just how common it is and some of the things that you think are red flags. There's so much more behind that and so much more that we need to be looking out for.
A big part of your story, obviously, the redemption, but also some of the compassion that you ran into. And I'm curious for folks who are outside of Tennessee watching this, when Governor Hassan was a Republican, chose to basically grant you clemency, I'm sure it caught some people by surprise. What went into that decision, and why do you think he did that, given, I'm sure, would be some of the political ramifications?
Right. So many people were surprised. Nobody really expected for a Republican governor, especially someone who's very conservative and how they govern and how they run their state, to grant someone clemency from a life sentence, no less, and to grant me immediate release. And the fact of the matter is, from his own mouth, he said that it was his faith that led him to do that. He heard God calling him to do it. So it didn't matter if it seemed like it was politically the thing he should do. It was the right thing for him to do. And now I see that we don't really have a lot of leaders who are willing to do that, who are willing to do what's right. They want to do what's political, what seems right, what people are telling them to do. But we don't have many people who really look within themselves, who really look to God for guidance and to really direct them and see, how should I be treating this individual? How should I be loving my neighbor as I'm called to do? And that's what went into his decision. And that's really what we need to see in our leadership if we ever want to see changes to the things that are happening systemically.
I should mention your book won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Biography, Autobiography. Have you been surprised by how many people, after hearing your story, came forward and shared theirs with you?
I was, and it's because I was used to people who went through similar situations. They're in the prison, and we talked about what we all went through, what we had in common, but I wasn't used to running into people in the free world and having these kinds of conversations. I was never used to a situation where people felt open and comfortable to talk about their experiences. And that's really important when, you're talking about healing, but also empowering other people to do the same and to really just step forward in their own healing. So I was surprised, but it's just been a blessing. And that's one thing that really pushes me to continue going through with talking about it. If it's ever uncomfortable, if it's ever repetitive, it doesn't matter, because the reward is so great, just seeing other people just open up like that.
Finally, tell folks, Cyntoia, about your foundation and how, if they want to be a part of it, they can help.
So my foundation, the Foundation for Justice, Freedom, and Mercy, what we do is we spend a lot of our energy working with local groups, trying to get the message out, to participate with these groups, trying to get the message out and what it really means to be victims of trafficking, what it really means to be victims of the system, the criminal justice system, and really figuring out what is it that we can best do to mobilize people to support these individuals. And anyone who wants to support our organization, they can visit our website at the JFAM Foundation.org. They can also email us info@jfamfoundation.org for more information on how they can support us in our mission.
And we brought that URL up, at the bottom of your screen here, so we encourage people to do so. Cyntoia, congratulations on the book, its success, and the foundation, and thank you for giving us a few minutes.
Thank you so much.
Up next on RFL, highlights from today's March on Washington, held on the 57th anniversary of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic I Have a Dream speech.